Hey everybody, welcome to the HERDFIT podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. All right, welcome back to the HERDFIT podcast. We are here. I am David Syvertsen, Coach David Syvertsen. I'm here with Dr. Sam Rhee, and we have a very, very, very special guest with us today. He's a staple in the CrossFit Bison community. There's also a story to be told today. It's really special to us. Obviously, very special to him. We'll get into something that happened just over a year ago. But this is Tom Kietur.
Tom Kietur.
Tom Kietur.
That's all right.
I knew you were going to get it. I was waiting for that. Can we edit that?
Tom K.
So Tom K is what I write on the whiteboard every time I write his scores. So that's just what I'm going to call him today. Tom, welcome to the HERDFIT podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Tom, before we get into why we have you on today and what we can learn from you, what you've inspired both Sam and I and countless people here at Bison, tell us just a little bit about yourself, your background, because I think it's going to help kind of clear the picture out a little bit once we get into what we're talking about.
All right, I'll take it back just a couple of years. I'm a 21-year Air Force veteran. I joined the Air Force back in 1992, retired in 2013, and then hit the civilian world from there. And it's a pretty abbreviated statement, but I served all over the world, stationed in Germany for 9 years, Middle East, cool. Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, you name it.
Awesome. And here we are on 9/11. And just, before we get into anything, just thank you for your service. Big
Absolutely.
time. That's something that we should always be overly thankful for. Now, in regard to Tom and health and fitness, can you give just some background on, how long have you been doing CrossFit, but even further back than that, in kind of comparing what kind of condition you're in now to where you were, 10, 15, 20 years ago when you were in the Air Force?
Yeah. I mean, taking it to high school and stuff, I wrestled, and that's about the extent of it. I was never really an athlete. Anybody that knows the Air Force, especially the earlier years, fitness was definitely not a big picture item. We had an annual test, and all this test is you got on an exercise bike, they measured your heart rate, and if it went up to a certain rate and didn't go too high, you passed. It was really, and that was it.
Wow.
So you could see fitness in the Air Force was not a big thing, and there was a general, in the late 90s that said, this is ridiculous. We have the most unfit force. So they started the whole PT program, PT testing, mile and a half under 9 minutes type thing, 60 push-ups in a minute, 60 sit-ups in a minute. They actually measuring your waist. They actually kept you going. So it wasn't until probably 2000 that fitness actually started playing a role in my life and in the Air Force.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, you could even see across multiple, agencies with police, FBI, military, they have all increased or altered their approach to fitness testing, and I think that the fitness industry over the past 20 years has become more performance centered, meaning what can you do? And I think that, I hear this a lot, is that people that are in their 40s and 50s are they're in much better shape now than they were 20 years ago because of just more general understanding of what fitness is all about.
I think a big thing for me, 2010, I decided to quit smoking. And that was
2010?
Yeah. I mean, okay. I smoked for 20 years.
Wow.
2 packs a day. It was disgusting.
Wow.
I couldn't even think about it now. But 2010 is probably my big shift, because then I started training. I ran 3 marathons, countless halves. I just started kind of changing the way I viewed things. January 2014, I started CrossFit up in Massachusetts.
Yep.
So that was my start of CrossFit.
Okay, so you're 7 years in now.
Yep.
That's awesome. Cool. All right, so the story we want to tell, I'm going to give my perspective, Sam will give his, but the perspective we all really want to hear is yours. And just over a year ago, we were still in the kind of towards the tail end of our gym being shut down, indoor operations. We were the state allowed us to start working out together outside. I think it was just after Memorial Day, late May, early June. So a couple months in August, we had a Saturday partner workout outside, and we had been working out in our parking lot all summer. Nasty heat. Oh, yeah. But we were so thankful just to be around each other after not being around each other for so long that, we kind of didn't care. All right. But I think at some point you're like, all right, this is kind of brutal. You're on the pavement. But it was a typical Saturday partner workout, meaning the intensity was really high, the volume was really high, and you were with a partner more often than not. That increases the intensity. And we just, Tom and I just worked out in the same class, and it's pretty typical that in classes after that, a few people, if not many people, are rolling on the ground after the workout, being dramatic.
I mean, and I want to chime in before that. We've known Tom ever since you were here at Bison.
Yeah.
2015.
2015, yeah.
Yeah.
Like years, only I think our second year in business you were there.
And, you're the real deal as an athlete, right? Like, we've known him and his performance and everything that he's been doing.
Yep. And just his effort always is high. Like Tom, I don't think I can ever remember Tom coming in, with a bad attitude.
Never.
And we're not just saying that because he's here. Sam and I have said this about you several times. Is never bad attitude, but you never have like low effort either. And obviously you're a human being. There's days where you probably felt like crap, something kind of hurt.
I got a broken rib today, so.
Wait, you have one?
Yeah, I fell. That's right. So
and you did
I took it easy. If you saw me skating today, I was taking it easy.
Honestly, I don't know if you're taking it easy is a little different than others take it easy. But we bring this up because Tom, pleasure to be here because he brings energy into a room, whether he's trying to attack the workout or he has a broken rib. But he always goes hard. That was like a reputation Tom built for himself over the first few years. He was one of the guys that almost after every workout, you were on the ground, just like smoked. Got up, smiled.
Trying to keep up with Sam.
Yeah. And he would leave saying with a big smile on his face saying, see you tomorrow.
And you're a fit individual. I mean, I remember there was a layoff for a while where maybe it was your business and you were starting, and then you came back and you were like, oh, I really needed to, maybe it was like a couple months, and then you came back and then you got after it again. And, so you've always been, like Dave said, is someone who chased after it, who had the best attitude regardless of what the workout was, how you felt. And you were fit.
Yeah. Yeah, very fit. Now, we bring that up because after this workout that we were talking about, outdoor, Saturday, in the heat, partner, high intensity, Tom is on the ground, rolling around the ground. And we see this multiple times every day. All right, Tom's tired, he'll get up. And then all of a sudden, you could start hearing him say like, get Sam or someone else. It might have been Susan saying, get Sam, get Sam. Sam's a doctor, and that immediately threw like a pit into my stomach personally, that like everything around us just froze because Saturdays are very hectic here. Like you have another class coming in, the parking's a mess, right? And all of a sudden everything just stopped. Get Sam. Kathleen was there too, also a doctor. And that was, a really nasty pit in the stomach feeling that something was genuinely wrong with you. We couldn't tell what it was. Whenever someone grabs their chest and says there's pressure on my chest, the worst starts to go through your head. So Sam, take it over from your perspective. So you were one of the first or the second to go over to him.
Yeah. Well, I had just finished the workout too. So I was in my own little personal recovery, on my knees, like just kind of dripping and, and it was hot outside. So everyone after finishing kind of was in the shade inside.
Right.
And so I didn't actually hear Tom at first, which is why Susan or someone else was like yelling for me.
Yeah.
Which is why that's when I came over and saw Tom, and Kathleen had come over at the same time.
And both of you guys were trying to get a hold of his pulse, right?
Yes.
One of you had your hand around his wrist.
Yes.
And just before he gets into what was actually going on through his head at that point, what was your initial, not prognosis, what was your initial thought on, what was going on with him?
Well, okay. So first of all, I am a doctor, but I'm a plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
So that means I'm not really a real doctor anymore. It's been a while.
More than us though.
It's been a while. But the first thing when I saw Tom was, oh shit, he does not look good.
Okay.
And you are in considerable amount of discomfort, more than I've seen probably anyone,
Post-walk.
short of, being in a hospital in the ER, or some sort of trauma. So that was my first thought was Tom does not look very good.
Yeah. All right. Now, Tom, take it over.
I'll back it up from running in.
Yeah.
And that's really, I barely remember the workout. I know it was some type of
Rowing.
shoulder to overhead.
Running. Yep.
And the run was the last part in. And I remember running in and turning the corner into the driveway. And that's when I said, ooh, I pushed it hard. Because that was the end. And I was having problems catching my breath. And this is probably going to get a little emotional.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right, man. It's okay. It was a tough day for all of us, man. Take your time.
So I couldn't get comfortable. I remember just kind of hanging on the fence. I was sitting on the side of the building just trying to, I think at that point it's like you don't know what's going on, and it's kind of like denial because you're not, there's just no way I'm having a heart attack. This is just not going to happen to me. It just got increasingly worse, and I went and I laid down, and it just really all started to fall apart. The nausea was I had no idea what my body was just doing its own thing. I had no control, kind of curled up in some kind of position. And I tell you at that point, I don't know a lot about what happened at that point.
Right.
Just because I think your mind's just in this other place. Right. I mean, there's voices around you.
Yep.
And I do remember this though, when Valley got here.
Yep.
And the guy's like, "You're having a heart attack."
Yep.
And I was mad. I was mad.
Meaning in what way?
Because I knew things would never be the same.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like
right there in that moment.
I knew. I'm like, I'm never going to be the same.
Wow. And it was a solid 10 to 15 minutes, right?
Longer than that, maybe 20, but I would say, so the first thing always, right, and pretty much anyone who's taken any sort of basic life-saving training knows, you were on the floor, you were breathing, you were responsive. So, those are not, so is what? Airway, breathing, circulation, all those things are in place. So you don't have to do anything. But you are not doing well. You were writhing. You couldn't sit still. You were in so much pain. Yeah. You were constantly moving.
Nobody can get a control of
That's a really bad sign. So you always get help first, right? So the first thing is you get someone to get help. So we said, Kathleen and I said, call 911 right now. So they called 911. We're sitting with you, trying to comfort you. There are no other supportive measures for us to do at that point. The defib machine I was thinking about was on the wall, and I was thinking, do we break it open and just to save us time in case or not? And I said, I think that's just going to scare people.
It's funny. So our first 3 months of being open, we didn't have an AED, and it was typical first time business owner dumb mistake. And we didn't think about it. And then someone said, you guys need to have one of these. And it's like, oh wait, how much is it? Like, looking back on it now, and if anyone ever opens up a gym, it's got to be the first thing you buy because, but we've never had to actually, knock on wood, break it out. But that was the first time we were like, break that out. But again, same thing. Me have no idea. I didn't know if he had heartburn or if he was having a serious heart attack.
That was a question.
Right.
I mean, that was one of my questions I think I asked you.
Right. And you can't tell other than the fact that your pain was so out of proportion to anything else.
Right.
But to open up the AED and set it up is literally 2 minutes, and it was sitting right there. So I was like, what, you don't need to break it open. It would not necessarily save us a lot of time. If you've never used an AED, they're dead simple to use.
Yep. It tell you everything.
It goes through the whole thing verbally on you. You know where to slap, the pads on and all that. So that wasn't really the issue. So as soon as Valley came though, and they hooked up the leads and they put it on, like I haven't looked at an EKG really analyzed an EKG in a long time, probably decades, where I've really had to figure one out. And I looked at the squiggle, and you know how it goes, right? And normally EKG is like up, down, and one of your leads was like up, down, whoa, down. Up, down, up, down.
Yeah, I remember watching you like you were studying that thing.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, it's been a long time since I looked at an EKG, but that doesn't look right. That looks like one of the really bad ones. And even the paramedic at the time was like, you're having a heart attack. And you could tell. It's called tombstoning. And that's that. And I had to look at all this stuff up again. But basically it's when you have leads across the heart, right? And it shows you the position of the electrical signal, and the ones in the front showed this big ST elevation, which is part of the EKG, which showed that there was a huge infarct or cardiac event on the front part of your heart, which is where the left ventricle is, which is the biggest part of your heart, the one that actually pumps all the blood from the heart into your circulation. And, that's we talked about that's called a widowmaker. The mortality rate for that sort of heart attack is literally 90%. Yeah. And they basically bundled you up, took you straight to Valley right after that. So do you remember what happened at that time?
I remember going into the ambulance, and I remember thinking the trip from here to Valley was the longest, because I knew for that 10 minutes, that's probably what it was.
Yeah, 7 to 10 minutes. Yeah.
Nothing can be done. You know what I mean? What can you do in an ambulance, really? I was so thirsty. Yeah, I think when you're having a heart attack, you sweat. Yep. I mean, it's just like I was soaked.
Plus, you just got done with the workout.
Yeah. So that didn't help. And they gave me nitro to stick under my tongue. Fast forward, it wasn't until the cath lab that actually I got enough saliva in my mouth to get it out from under my tongue. So the nitro never hit me.
Wow.
My mouth was that dry.
Wow.
But that 10 minutes, from here to Valley was the longest. And then when I got in there, things moved pretty quick. And and what I remember most is laying in the cath lab. You're still in tremendous pain. These guys are going through my groin, and all of a sudden he opens up a balloon, and it was like, boom. Like, things are brighter. The pain is 100% gone. Everything's back to normal because he just opened up that was LAD.
Yeah, the left anterior descending artery.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was huge. And then they stuck 2 stents in. And from that point, I was alive at that point.
Yeah. Mindset changed at that point.
Yeah. It was exhausting. But yeah, at least I knew at that point I was okay. It was a rough couple days.
How long were you in the hospital?
7 days.
Yeah, it was a while, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember, I want to check my phone. I think you messaged me that night or the second night that we were.
So you showed me your angiogram. They showed it to you, right? And you saw that LAD was completely occluded.
Yes.
And that blood vessel supplies over 50% of the blood to that left ventricle. And it was completely blocked, which is why the mortality rate is literally 90%. And the fact that you were able to get to the cath lab within, a reasonable amount of time, the fact that they were able to unblock you, like if it had been in like 2 hours or 3 hours,
I would be dead.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I remember you telling me that, and this is, August 30th, you said, here's her text. She goes, that was some scary shit. 100% blockage. Thank you for everything. I'm really sorry I messed up class.
I think
if you want to know who Tom is and what kind of person he is, there you go right there. I'm sorry I messed up class. Unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, so you were in the hospital for a week at that point, and coming back, and Tom's a small business owner, owns a cleaning company, and I think the dude works as much as anybody I know. And can you kind of go into just what did you have to do? What was the protocol for you coming home from the hospital in regard? I mean, we can get into working out later, but into everyday life.
I remember visiting you in the CCU, in the cardiac.
That was really nice. But
listen, it
was a nice surprise.
Yeah,
friendly face.
I mean, listen, I have privileges at Valley. I work there, so I know no one can really, very few people can visit you. Also with COVID,
especially
last year. Yeah. So, and in the CCU. So, and I wanted you to know that. I mean, I know you got a million messages from people and everything, but I also, honestly, there's some curiosity on my part because I've seen a lot of sick people in a lot of different situations. That was eye-opening for me to see someone who had such a severe heart attack and then survive just the way the textbooks say, like you should get cathed within, an hour. You should do this, and then to see you in the CCU. Honestly, you look like hell that first day. Like you looked really bad, but you were grateful and you were positive, which is really amazing. Like most people, I don't know. I think there'd be a lot of different emotions I can imagine people having, but you were so positive, which was really weird. Like, inspiring weird, not like weird, like
something's wrong with them.
Yeah, no, like, wow. You're
different. Yeah. Just different.
Like very, very inspiring to see that.
I know over the 6 months after that, I said a lot of things like, oh, they said I come back, I'm going to be back 100%.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was the just talk from the
Right.
doctors. And I don't know if it was just talk or they just didn't know, and I think that's really what it was. So I think I remember saying, oh, I'll be back in 2 weeks. I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Right.
But
Well, they don't know because that time that the blockage happened, heart muscle dies.
Yes.
It's not getting oxygen for that time. And then once they unblock it, the oxygen's going back.
Right.
But X amount of muscle has already died because of that time. The heart muscle can't survive very long without oxygen.
Right.
So no one knew, everyone, it was a guess what your heart muscle function recovery was. I think at the time when you talked, you were scared because you didn't want to become what they called a cardiac cripple, right? Where the heart muscle was so weak and not doing well.
Right.
And no one could give you a good answer. How did you feel about that?
Oh, it was awful because nobody, I think what was unique for me was I was in a certain level of shape. I was in decent shape.
Yes. Very decent shape.
And that's probably,
Especially compared to, I mean, again, we always talk about this. We can't just compare what you see here. There's a class going on right now. I can hear them dropping barbells. In relation to who they see in the hospital, you're top 1%, I bet.
yeah, they did not know what to do with me. In rehab, they didn't know what to do with me. They're not used to seeing somebody that's in shape and as young.
Yes.
I mean, everybody around me was in their 70s. It was a completely different. So, now I lost what the heck you just asked me.
So were you scared when they were telling you about your prognosis or the lack of knowledge about your prognosis?
That's what it was. Nobody had really any idea. So I think that's why I wouldn't call it misinformation, but they just didn't know.
Right.
And I couldn't get enough knowledge. I know I had asked you if there were any
Cardiologists,
that
right?
were
Who could
more sports related, and because I just wasn't getting the answers. All they wanted to do was medicate me, which maybe that helped, maybe it didn't. We still don't know today.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at a message in December. You were saying that December 9. So this is 3 months after.
That's right after I finished rehab. I think right around there.
So you know what? Before we get into that, let's talk about rehab.
Okay.
Just kind of about like what they were doing and
Yeah, rehab is neat. They hook you all up so they can monitor your heart while you're in there, and it's basically just going through, walking on a treadmill. So day one, and I have pictures of my progress because it's so goofy. Like, you're doing wads and throwing around weight, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, we'd like you to walk at 1.5 miles an hour for the next 10 minutes.
Wow.
We're going to watch your heart, and by day 2, I was already past the end,
you were RX plus.
By the time I finish, I'm running.
Yeah.
Nobody's running in rehab, and I'm running, and because I'm like, I'm never gonna get better. I'm never gonna push myself if I just sit here and walk, at a 1% incline. And
were you wearing a bison shirt?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did. I have pictures of me, especially on the last day, because that's my inspiration.
Yeah, I hear you.
This is where I wanted to get back to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in December, you said that, hey, I want to discuss my return to CrossFit, and you were basically under the mindset that as long as you kept your heart rate under 161, you'd be pretty comfortable with your return.
Were those the guidelines you were given?
When I had my stress test, I think like 161 was, that was the limit, but it's a bogus stress test because I was wearing a mask. How can you run uphill wearing a mask? I mean, that was really...
That's another thing I thought...
That's unfair.
That's another thing I forgot about.
What?
Is he came back to CrossFit after a heart attack. We were wearing a mask in Bison for months.
Yeah.
Like you had to come back to not only CrossFit, but CrossFit with a mask.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quick how we forget about that.
Yeah, I know it is. So you kind of went through it in December, and it looked like... end of December into January, that's when we started talking a little bit about your messages about like you were frustrated that you had to spend most of your classes, most of your workouts waiting for the heart rate to come down below a certain number so you could start moving again just to watch it go too high and have to like let it, talk about that. Just like that's a shift.
That
in mindset for you.
You were wearing a heart rate tracker that you would look at?
We're in it right now.
Yeah.
It's on my phone or on my watch. That was big.
Yeah.
That was the hardest part. Coming in here, not saying we're equals or you have equals, and I know you're not supposed to compare yourself to other people, but it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
we talk about it all the time.
Yeah, and I see people that I'm kind of like, hey, we're on the same level. We you know, you just know it, and then
Right.
you're working out right next to that person, and it's like, holy crap.
Yep.
You know, I am 1/4 of what they're doing right now, and that was the hardest part. I think the strength was there, but the heart was not there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So to do whatever, you know, one deadlift or a push up or whatever, and all of a sudden your heart rate's up to 170, it's like, well, this is just stupid.
Yeah.
Then what's the point?
Yeah.
And I think that getting past that, what's the point to how do we make it work? That was a hard transition. And I think once I figured that out and let it go, or check the ego at the door type thing, I think that's when it, you know, started to come back around.
We're soon going to be recording an episode on just things you can't control and how you should respond to them. And, you know, we all have different factors outside the gym that are going to make us will dictate some of our actions, decisions that we make inside the gym. This is a perfect example.
Absolutely. Being able to take that mindset from this is negative to what can I do to make that positive? We deal with that for so many different things all the time, whether it's just a sprain or a massive coronary event.
Right.
Like those are things to deal with. So how did you deal with that then?
Overcoming it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's always that little piece, and you got to run your own race.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think that's really, I just said, it doesn't matter anymore. I'll never, and I know it, my heart is screwed.
Yeah.
My EF is 33%.
Okay.
And
And normal is usually around 50.
Yeah. And this is where it's going to be. I lost, a third of my heart function. So it's never, I'll never be the same.
Right.
But that's okay because I'm fully functional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm okay.
Right.
Yeah. And things could always be worse, right? Like the number could be even lower. You know, at some point, I'm sure the thought did cross your mind that you'd never be able to CrossFit again.
Yeah, there's so much.
Right.
I mean, there's just so much.
Among other things, obviously. I know we're not just centered around CrossFit here.
No. But definitely, I said even like right after rehab, when I was really kind of in the dumps.
Right.
That's what I was thinking. My mindset was, well, if I can't do that, then what's the point?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
But there's a whole lot more to CrossFit than just RXing. And,
and being the best in the gym. Yeah.
And I think it's a good lesson for me because as I get older, there's certain things I'm never going to be able to do. I'm never going to be able to power clean as much as I did in the past, or I'm never going to be able to run my mile time as fast as I did. And for me to look at myself and say, well, that's a net negative is not the right way to look at it.
Right.
This is a more dramatic example of that. But I think, again, all of us face that sort of realization that, some things we do improve on. And I'm sure there are certain things that you find in your fitness that you're making progress with and improving every day. But there's certain things that we have to accept we're just not going to be able to do those things. And that's really hard, especially when it was taken away from you so abruptly. Did they ever tell you why they thought this was the case?
Possibly genetic. My great-grandfather, grandfather both died early 50s of some type of heart attack. So genetics, they think maybe a piece of plaque or something burst, and then it was instantaneous. I mean, I had no...
You literally just got done wadding. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember 3/4 of the way through the WOD, I started getting a little heartburn. And I think, but what's heartburn?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it doesn't happen to me often, but it happens often enough for me to go, no, I'm not having a heart attack. But it happened. And, in hindsight, something was probably happening right there at the end.
Right. It started. Yeah. And you weren't going to not finish the workout. I mean,
right.
Oh my God. No, you should stop.
Just knowing Tom's mindset, like it would take.
Our recommendation is not to finish the workout.
Yes.
No. Well, if that's, if you think you're having a heart attack, you probably want to get help.
No, just knowing Tom's mindset, like it would take like a truck hitting him to stop a WOD. Like we've been or a heart attack. Right. But even that, you didn't.
And our disclaimer is this is not medical advice. This is personal, anecdotal experience from somebody, please. I don't want to get into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I have a text. The last one I want to share is from April, and it was saying that was the first. This is the first time I felt like I'm actually back. What a great feeling, you know. And that was, I'm gonna do some quick math. 9 months after, and I just want to say credit to you, man, because I think a lot of people would have given up or found a reason not to do it.
Yeah.
And you were finding new doctors, and you went up like the ladder, like one step at a time, and you probably wanted to, you know, in certain moments, either get off the ladder or skip a few steps, and now you're over a year in, and yes, things may never be the same, but I mean, honestly, man, like I can't tell that much of a difference, if at all, watching you work out now and being around you. Like you bring energy to me when I'm coaching, like when we get to see who's in our classes now. Whenever I see your Tom Kietur, no, just kidding, Tom K on my apps and they're in, like I know, just like there's very few people in the gym. If I see a person in the class, it's going to be an awesome class, and you're one of them. And I think it has nothing to do with what you used to be able to do compared to what you could do now. It's the energy you bring into the room, and I think that's like a huge, like a thank you from us. You know,
Do you still have a hard heart rate limit at this point?
Oh, you know, so that is my limitation. I watch my heart rate and I push it until it says no more. Like I got after it really, really hard on row number 13 today.
Yeah.
So next thing, my heart rate's up to 177. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
You know, that's it. I like to keep between 145 and 160. So if I can deadlift, you know, 300 pounds and it's low, great. If I can only get to 125, well, then that's
pretty high.
Today.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty high. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, I don't think many people go that far above it.
170 something makes me feel awful.
Yeah. But we talk about that zone 2, zone 3 training sometimes, and that's kind of like where you want to live.
Yeah, but that's the problem. It's so easy for me to get there.
Yeah, right. It happens in a hurry.
The problem.
Right. Yeah.
But now, have you been able to maintain it and sustain it longer within that zone that you want to stay in at this point?
It all depends. Like when I run and I'm out on the road, and I actually ran 5 miles 2 weeks ago just to kind of see how it feels. But still, you know, my heart rate was still at, you know, 145, 150, which is really high for going out for a run.
Right.
I feel.
Yeah.
Should be 135-ish.
How do you feel your conditioning has been over the past 6 months at this point, progress-wise?
Well, that's tough because right now I'm busier than ever. So
your work.
That's killing me.
That's kind of what I wanted to get into next. But yeah, I mean, conditioning, physical conditioning, you know, compared to even where you were like 6 months ago, where do you think?
I think mentally I'm in a much better. I'll tell you, I'm getting old quick. my shoulders don't feel the same. So
yeah.
But I will tell you how important it is, you know, to maintain a schedule, because I think when I hurt, and it's not that good hurt, it's the bad hurt.
Yeah.
I think that's because muscle strength is being lost, and you know, that's how I think it's so important to keep on it, keep working out, because it keeps you together.
Right.
You know?
Right. Absolutely. Now, outside the gym, you know, what were there things that, because we've spent a lot of time talking about your fitness in relation to what happened last year, you know, and you are a very busy man, and you do a very good job with your cleaning business. I remember when you started it, I mean, you took off pretty quick.
It's grown tremendously.
Yeah. I'm fortunate, very lucky.
Yeah, you're doing a good job, but you've earned there, and there's a lot of work on your plate. And I know, and Sam knows, when the busier you are with work and you're trying to work out, you have a family, right? It's stressful. What part has anything had to shift within that realm to, you know, in regard to your heart?
As far as work?
Yeah.
There's no.
Are there any habits that you're trying to get a hold of, struggling to beat right now, things that you've had changed?
I'll tell you, stress is a killer.
Yes.
Diet is always a killer.
Yep.
I'm definitely not where I should be, definitely not where I want to be.
Right.
And that's something I'd like to take control of.
Right.
I think things like that, being more consistent coming here.
Mm-hmm.
I always like the 4:15 class. I love the 6 a.m. class because it always started my day.
Right.
I need to start my day
Even
earlier
earlier.
than that.
Yeah.
But I always like the 4:15 class because it helps me end my day.
Right.
You know, it's like, that's it. Everybody's get out of here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this is my time.
Yeah.
And that's been harder and harder lately, the busier I get.
Right.
But I mean, that's something that I need to change, because that's nobody else is going to do it for me.
Right.
And nobody else is going to shut my mouth when I want to stick something good in it.
Yeah. Right.
So,
yep.
So they always say when people go through a near-death experience, they appreciate things more. It changes their perspective. Like, is that true for you in terms of what you've seen in your life? How you feel?
I would say certain things. I still think a year later, I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, I still, you know, there are certain, sometimes I say, you know what, you only live once. So this is how it's going to be.
Yep.
And this is not going to get any better. And I know it medically, this is not, so you just have to deal with it. So yeah, I mean, I guess I am appreciative and I just happy to be here.
I was about to say, you're so busy with life now again that it's like, you're not necessarily thinking about all the negative things that can happen. You just got right back into it in spades.
I think that's what I said. I said, you cannot focus on a number. That I was at the cardiologist 2 weeks ago and I had an echo and that's when they said, okay, your EF is still 33. And I'm like, whatever. I said, I don't care anymore. I said, I'm not gonna just live my life by a number. A year ago, I want, you know, an echo every month. I went in for a cardiac MRI just because I wanted to really, really, really know.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's still 31 or it's still 33.
Yeah.
And then I got to the point, it's like, it doesn't matter. It's just a number.
Yep. Okay.
I love that.
Yeah.
You can't let it run your life.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks, Tom. You know, again, I want to echo what we said earlier. You know, we're honored to just be a part of your life. You know, even if it's for an hour a day, a few days a week, and you know, we'll never forget that day. I'm sure you won't either.
I want to ask one last question. What advice would you give to anyone who had to go through what you went through? Like, what was the biggest lesson you learned? Or if you had to tell someone, listen, I went through this. This is what I can tell you.
You got to stay positive. I think that's the biggest thing. I know you mentioned it and I didn't even realize it in the hospital. You're going to get through it. Yeah. Stay positive and don't give up. You know, I got corny shirts that, you know, say never quit and all that good stuff. But it is, it's mental. And once you give up, a quick story. There's a guy, when I lived in Germany, he retired after working 40 years for a company. He was 65, 70. And I said, what are you going to do? He's like, oh, I'm going to open up a business at like 70. And I said, why? I said, don't you want to relax? He's like, if I stop living, I'm dead.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. If you have an event like this, anything, broken leg, and you stop living, you're done. I mean, it's, you know, maybe you're not going to die, but there's no reason to stop.
Yep. Love it, Tom. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the HERDFIT podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.